The city goes black in one heartbeat, and this time the lights never come back. But darkness is only the first clue. The real danger is not what you think. It is not just losing lamps, screens, and chargers. It is losing control over the modern world. Water stops moving where pumps once worked. Food stops staying cold where fridges once hummed. Hospitals become quiet, in the worst possible way. And the strangest part is this. The world still has energy everywhere. Sunlight still falls from the sky. Wind still pushes across the oceans. Rivers still run downhill. Fire can still release heat. But none of it becomes electricity anymore. In this scenario, one rule changes. Human technology can no longer use electric power. Power grids fail. Batteries become useless. Generators cannot create usable current. Solar panels turn into silent glass. Wires become metal lines with no message. Microchips become tiny, frozen cities. But nature itself does not disappear. Atoms still hold together. Lightning could still flash in a storm. Your heart still beats. Your brain still sends signals. Because if all electricity and physics vanished, matter itself would fail. So this is not the end of atoms. It is the end of the electric age. First, second. Every screen on Earth goes black. Phones die in people's hands. Elevators stop between floors. Traffic lights freeze into darkness. Airplanes lose electronic navigation. Trains stop talking to their control rooms. The planet does not explode. That almost makes it more frightening. Because everything looks almost normal for a moment. Cars still coast forward. People still breathe. Buildings still stand. The sun still rises. But the invisible layer is gone. The layer that measures, switches, guides, and warns. Modern civilization has lost its nervous system. First minute. People reach for answers that no longer exist. No emergency alerts appear. No calls connect. No maps load. No one knows if it is local or global. That uncertainty becomes the first panic. In homes, refrigerators go silent. In apartments, water pressure begins to depend on gravity alone. In offices, locked electronic doors become obstacles. In subways, underground trains become dark metal rooms. But here's the hidden problem. Electricity is not just a power source. It is a timing system. It tells machines when to start. It tells valves when to open. It tells engines how to adjust. Without that timing, machines become blind. First hour. The blackout becomes bigger than darkness. Cities begin losing coordination. Police radios are silent. Fire stations cannot receive normal digital dispatches. Hospitals switch to plans that no longer have power behind them. Backup generators would normally buy time. But in this scenario, generators cannot make usable electricity. That changes everything. Operating rooms lose powered instruments. Monitors become blank panels. Ventilation systems stop pushing controlled air. Elevators cannot move patients between floors. Doctors and nurses still know what to do, but their tools have fallen centuries backward. The first hour is not a collapse of knowledge. It is a collapse of reach. Knowledge cannot pump water by itself. Knowledge cannot cool medicine by itself. Knowledge cannot move food across a continent by itself. Now imagine this happening everywhere. Every city becomes an island of confusion. Every airport becomes a maze of grounded machines. Every server farm becomes a silent warehouse. Every bank loses its living memory. Money still exists as an idea, but the systems that prove it are gone. First day. The most important question becomes simple. Where is clean water? Many cities depend on electric pumps. Pumps lift water into towers and pipes. They also move wastewater away from people. When pumps stop, pressure begins to fade. Faucets may work for a while. Then the hidden clock runs out. Water becomes local again. Rivers, wells, rain, and stored tanks matter more than money. Food becomes the second clock. Modern food is not just grown, it is cooled, tracked, packaged, shipped, and scanned. Without electricity, refrigeration stops first. Then storage becomes a race against heat. Frozen food begins returning to room temperature. Fresh food becomes fragile. Supermarkets are full, but only briefly useful. The shelves are not the supply chain. They are only the visible tip of it. Behind them are trucks, warehouses, fuel systems, and data. And data has just vanished from the machine. Here comes the midpoint twist. A gasoline engine sounds mechanical. But modern engines often need electric ignition and control. A diesel engine can be more mechanically forgiving. But many modern diesels still use electronics. Fuel pumps, sensors, starters, and logistics all depend on power. So the problem is not only moving vehicles, it is feeding the system that feeds the vehicles. By the end of the first day, cities feel smaller, not because buildings moved, because communication distance collapsed. A message can travel only as fast as a person can carry it. The internet is not down. It is unreachable in principle. Satellites may still orbit Earth, but without usable electronics, they become silent moons. Fiber cables may still cross oceans, but without powered equipment, they carry no conversation. Data centers may still contain human history, but the keys are locked inside dead machines. First week. Survival stops being about gadgets. It becomes about geography. Places near clean water gain an advantage. Places with mild weather gain time. Places with local farms become more important. Dense cities become harder to support. High-rise living becomes a vertical trap. No elevator, limited water pressure, no refrigeration, no digital coordination. The taller the system, the more it needed electricity. First month. Human society begins sorting itself by old skills. Farming matters again. Repair matters again. Navigation by land and sky matters again. Mechanical tools become priceless. Printed books become search engines that still work. Libraries become survival infrastructure. Bicycles become advanced transportation. Horses become strategic assets. Windmills and water wheels return to the center of engineering. But they do not replace the old world quickly. The old world was built for electric scale. Billions of people relied on invisible timing. Ships needed ports that knew when to load. Farms needed machines that knew when to move. Hospitals needed supply chains that knew when to deliver. Without electricity, timing becomes human again. Slower, local, easier to break. 1 year later, the world would not look like one single apocalypse. It would look uneven. Some communities could adapt with water, land, and cooperation. Others would struggle because they were built on dependence. Rural areas might recover certain basics faster. Coastal cities might depend on old maritime skills again. Cold regions would face brutal heating problems. Hot regions would face water and food stress. But the biggest change would be psychological. People would realize how little of modern life is directly visible. You see a light switch. You do not see the grid behind it. You see a bottle of medicine. You do not see the cold chain behind it. You see a card payment. You do not see the trust network behind it. Electricity made those invisible systems feel effortless. Without it, effort returns to everything. Now compare this to real history. Humans lived without electric grids for most of our existence. So survival is not impossible, but scale is the trap. Ancient societies were built for low-energy life. Modern megacities are not. Ancient food systems were local by necessity. Modern food systems are global by design. Ancient records were physical. Modern records are often trapped inside machines. That is the scientific twist. We would not simply go back in time. We would fall between two worlds, too modern to live easily without electricity, too disconnected from older systems to replace it quickly. That gap is the danger. The final twist is even stranger. Earth would still be full of power. Sunlight would still warm the ground. Wind would still cross the plains. Rivers would still carry motion. Fire would still release heat. But civilization would lose precision. Precision is what electricity gave us. Tiny signals controlling giant systems, a switch opening a hospital door, a sensor protecting a water plant, a clock synchronizing a continent, a chip guiding food to a city. Without electricity, humans still have muscle, we still have fire, we still have wheels, we still have memory. But we lose the invisible coordination that made billions possible. So who survives best? Not the richest person with the most devices. Not the tallest city with the brightest skyline. The advantage goes to people with water, food, tools, and trust. Communities that can share labor would matter. Places that can grow food would matter. People who can repair simple machines would matter. Knowledge would matter most when printed, taught, and remembered. The future would not be silent forever. Humans would rebuild sound, motion, heat, and industry. But without electricity, rebuilding would follow different rules. More mechanical, more local, more visible, more fragile. The world would become slower, but not simpler, because complexity would move from machines into people. Every trip would require planning. Every meal would require local work. Every message would require a carrier. Every winter would become a test. Every summer would become a test. The electric world hides difficulty. The non-electric world reveals it. And that is why this scenario is so unsettling. It does not break gravity. It does not move the moon. It does not freeze the sun. It only removes one layer from civilization. But that layer was everywhere. In walls, in hospitals, in farms, in money, in memory, in trust. One impossible change reveals a hidden truth. Civilization is not only made of concrete and steel, it is made of signals. Signals tell the world what to do next. Remove the signals, and the world does not instantly end. It forgets how to move together. That is the real blackout. Not the loss of light, the loss of coordination, the loss of timing, the loss of invisible order. So what if electricity disappeared forever? The first night would be dark. The first week would be confusing. The first year would redraw civilization. And the future would belong to those who can rebuild without the invisible spark. Electricity did not just light the world. It taught the world how to act as one. The darkest world is not the one without light. It is the one without control. If you want the next impossible scenario, stay with the science if, and tell us what should disappear next.